Part of the reason that people invest is to have enough money to live on in retirement. When the day comes that you want to start taking regular withdrawals from your investment portfolio, you want to be sure that you won't run out of money. So how much can you take out? In 1998, professors at Trinity University studied this question using Monte Carlo simulation, which allowed them to take different portfolios and different withdrawal rates and run them over and over against the sorts of market conditions that we have seen over the past 80 years. They made some basic assumptions. First, they assumed that the portfolio was fixed at the beginning and no new money would be coming in. Their second assumption was that inflation would run at 3% and each year's withdrawal would be 3% higher than the last to adjust for this inflation. This is a key assumption because prices will definitely go up, and if you don't adjust for this inflation, you'll start out eating caviar and end up eating cat food. Their third basic assumption is that the portfolio would grow tax-free. This is true of an IRA, but many people also have money in taxable accounts, in which case this assumption would be overly optimistic. The first thing they looked at was basic asset allocation. Everybody knows that stocks outperform bonds over the long term, but they wanted to see how different portfolios would perform in their model with the different withdrawal rates. They looked at three portfolios. The blue line is 100% stocks, the yellow line is 50-50 stocks and bonds, and the purple line is 75% stocks and 25% bonds. Across the bottom of the chart are different withdrawal rates, starting with withdrawing 3% of the portfolio on the left and going up to 12% on the right. The y-axis shows the success rate. This is the chance that the portfolio will last for 30 years given a particular withdrawal rate. The graph confirms the popular belief that stocks outperform bonds over the long haul. The fact that the blue line has a higher success rate than the other lines shows this. Since the portfolio had a greater investment return, it produced more money and was less likely to run out. This is by no means a recommendation to hold 100% stocks. In another presentation I go into the details of asset allocation, but suffice it to say here that 100% stocks is not a recommendation. It's just used to confirm that the model produces the real-world result. Then the study said, what is the prudent withdrawal rate for different asset allocations? I've shown here the results for a portfolio with 75% equity and 25% debt, which is a fairly common portfolio makeup. The results for the other asset allocations are similar, and again, this is not a recommendation. This time, the lines represent time periods. Let's look at the lowest of the lines, the aqua line that represents 30 years. It's worth mentioning two things. The first is that people's life expectancies are getting longer. For the baby boom generation, right now, life expectancy is growing by 2 to 3 years per decade. The second is that if you plan to leave any sort of a legacy to your kids or to charity as examples, your investment time horizon will extend beyond the end of your life. The point is that 30 years is probably not too long for most people. The 30-year line crosses the 90% success rate line at a 5% withdrawal rate. This means that if you have a portfolio that consists of 75% stocks, and you start out withdrawing 5% of your portfolio, and you increase your withdrawals by the rate of inflation each year, you have a 90% chance that the portfolio will last 30 years. Another way to say the same thing is that you have a 10% chance of running out of money. A 4% withdrawal rate has a much better chance of success, and this is where the recommendation of 4% comes from. I took the Trinity study and did some modeling of my own. First, I assumed that income taxes would be due and would be paid out of the withdrawal amount. Second, that the cost of living would vary randomly between 2% and 5% rather than being a fixed 3%. And then I assumed an increase in the cost of living to account for the taxes that will be due on the required minimum distributions from retirement accounts starting at age 70 and a half. The basic conclusions are these. First, based on the Trinity study, you should plan to withdraw no more than 4% from your portfolio in retirement if you want it to last at least 30 years. This applies to people with outside sources of income as well as to those who are living exclusively off their portfolios. The second conclusion is that you should reduce your withdrawal by 3% whenever there is a market downturn in order to avoid depleting your portfolio.